Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and we talk about crowdfunding on this show, talk about how to raise money when it comes to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, equity crowdfunding. And really, I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to show you, to give you a main line to the tactics, the strategies, the tools that work to get you funding for your passion, for your dream, for a new product that you're trying to come out with, a new product you're trying to get out there into the world. And my vision for this show, since I started it in 2015 and been in the industry since 2012, has always been to just deliver to you the cutting edge things that are working right now that no one else is covering. I want to share with you what's blowing up, what's happening in the crowdfunding industry that no one else is sharing with you. And I think you deserve that, honestly. You deserve to know what is working so you can hop on that opportunity. And today we're actually talking about how I believe that equity crowdfunding is seeing a renaissance. We're seeing a surge of activity when it comes to the company WeFunder, Start Engine, all these other guys. And I brought on a testimonial, I guess a case study of why that's the case. So I brought on today an entrepreneur who has run multiple WeFunder campaigns for millions of dollars. His current campaign has raised over $500,000 for Vampr, which is a equity crowdfunding campaign for the #1 networking platform for musicians with traction and awards. It's kind of like a marketplace for empowering top talent in the music industry. Now, not only do I want you to listen to why this is happening, like the actual opportunity that is right in front of you, but also the strategy that went into making this campaign successful. What this founder did in order to have a mega success when it comes to running one of these WeFunder equity crowdfunding campaigns, what Reg CF, also known as regulation crowdfunding, can do for you, and how it's really led to a surge in growth for this company, bringing in new funds so it can expand their business and grow beyond what they could accomplish on their own. And in addition, this might be a historic moment on this show because we brought on this creator who made this incredibly interesting gift or reward, whatever it is you want to call it. It's really, I think, the first version of an NFT perk. So if you're not familiar with what NFTs are, they're very tied to cryptocurrency. But this creator actually released a limited edition Vampr NFT perk to some of the investors who participated in this funding round, this equity crowdfunding round. How cool is that, man? Combining all of these different cool cutting edge technologies and trends in order to raise $500,000 with this campaign, also $1 million with this past one. That is insane. That is opportunity, my friends. So we're going to hear about that story on today's podcast episode. And in addition, go and check out some of the early episodes of this podcast, literally just nuggets of gold waiting to be mined. It's really a treasure chest and a trove of all of these different strategies, entrepreneurs, types of products that have done super well when it comes to crowdfunding. And the blueprint for success is hidden within that treasure trove. So all you got to do is go and listen to some of those other episodes. And in addition, for this one specifically, I put together a free course for you. If you're not familiar with equity crowdfunding, you can hop on this new free course and you can learn, you can kind of get started in getting primed of how to do one of these campaigns. What does it mean to do a regulation crowdfunding campaign? How can this work for you? How can this actually bring in funding into your company? And something maybe to consider alongside doing, you could always do a Kickstarter and then a WeFunder or vice versa. So something maybe to mix and match as well. So you want to check that link out. You go to link crowdcrux.com/equity course. Go to the link crowdcrux.com/equity course. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/equity course. Equity course. Just go there, enter your name and email, and I'll start sending you some emails, getting you primed to get you up to speed with this whole world of equity crowdfunding and WeFunder. That being said, let's dive into today's podcast episode and discover how this entrepreneur is able to come do a complete home run, not once, but twice. I think they also did another raise as well. And you're going to hear about all of that in just a second. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with a creator who has raised over $500,000 on WeFunder for the number one networking platform for musicians with traction and awards. And we're lucky enough to have the co-founder in the house. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. So this is such an interesting product. Maybe we could start. You could just tell the listeners a bit about your story and what the product is and just describe that for them a little bit.
Yeah, so Vampr is LinkedIn for creatives is sort of the very simplest way of describing it in a single sentence. But it started off really as a solution to a problem I was having. So I was in a band once upon a time called Buchanan, which in Australia was relatively successful. But we sort of had trouble building a network overseas, of people like agents and managers and publicists and stuff like that. And so the problem wasn't really talent or lack of ambition. It was, a personnel problem. And so I reached out to a few of the people at big record labels and said, look, is this a problem that affects anyone else? And it turns out it affects pretty much everyone who's ever sorted a career in the creative arts. And, one thing led to another, and suddenly a business was born. And so really we've been operating now for about 5 years, but our passion and I guess guiding sort of, or North Star is sort of this idea of how do we connect folks in these creative spaces and solve their personnel problems. If you look at, say, my background or the average time it takes most people in creative spaces to get to the point where their wage is paying for, a normal average lifestyle, it's about 7 years. So we're trying to cut that down to, days or weeks to find those right people that can get you into that position. That's sort of our objective.
Very cool. Very cool. And you've been experiencing a lot of growth as well when it comes to this. It looks like you've also been getting more and more engagement. Can you just talk a little bit about that and people using your app?
Yeah, so when we report about growth, we usually view it through three different lenses. There's sort of growth in numbers, growth in engagement, growth in revenue. And we're pretty transparent about that on our crowdfunding page, which people can check out. When it comes to numbers, I think this year has been our biggest by far. We've onboarded about 400,000 new people this year. We've crossed the 1 million mark a couple of months back. So, that's all really very exciting, but probably more important to the bottom line is engagement in the app. So one of the ways that we measure and report that is like how many minutes a day are people spending on Vampr? How many minutes are they viewing videos, listening to songs, checking people's profiles out, etc. And that's just exploded this year. It's sort of more than 3x where we were a year ago, up to I think 33 minutes a day now. That's pretty phenomenal for any company, frankly, when if you think about minutes an app, you're not just in competition with LinkedIn or SoundCloud, you're in competition with Netflix and radio stations and TV. And so if we can continue to improve that number and then solidify that, it really opens the door up for us to become a big advertising opportunity and a significantly larger company than perhaps we thought we might have been a couple of years ago.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is like around 2020, it seems like there was this big pivotal event that kind of pushed things in a completely upward surge when you relaunched.
Yes, that's right. That relaunch was almost like 3 years in the making, which people didn't probably know, and frankly, they don't need to know that. But we sat down in, I think it was summer 2017, and we understood that as far back as then where our limitations were with our previous app. So it was still called Vampr. It had similar branding, similar concept, but we knew that it would hit a brick wall for a whole variety of reasons that I won't bore listeners with. And we sort of worked out what the solution to that might be. But we realized we're going to have to raise several $1 million to build that. And so the way we did that was a whole lot of these sort of, crowdfunding rounds that have done between 500,000 and $1 million. And we've been able to sort of build and raise simultaneously. And yeah, when we finally relaunched that product in August 2020, things have just spiked upward and sort of stayed spiking upward. They haven't really decelerated at this point. So
Super exciting. Yeah, super exciting.
touch wood and fingers crossed that it stays in that direction. But all signs are pointing that way. So it's really exciting for us.
So how many campaigns have you done then? Is this, your multiple one or how many have you
This
done?
is our third campaign.
Okay. And these other ones that you've done have sort of been throughout the years. Or what just numbers ballpark were you doing with these other campaigns?
So every campaign we've done has had a focus. As I said, we've kind of been raising to build. So when we did our first campaign, it was all about, look, we want to rebuild Vampr from scratch. And to get started, that's going to cost us, I think we said 1.5 million. We ended up raising 1 million, although some of that was Reg D designate. For those listening, means they might have come in through the crowdfunder, but we ended up sort of registering that investment with the SEC in a slightly different way. But we did about 1 million in that round. So we were about 500,000 short, but we still had enough to get started. So we used that money, put it to good work, rebuilt the app, launched it. And then I think a month after we launched the new app, we launched a new crowdfunding campaign, and that was to kind of finish the job of the first one. And so this one now, a little bit different. The pitch this time is we think we've hit some level of product market fit. We obviously have learned how to our freemium customers into paying customers. We have a over 3% conversion rate now, which is exactly on target to where we wanted to be at this point in time. So it's the perfect opportunity now to raise funds with the intent of like doubling down on user acquisition, bringing in more customers, which, ultimately increases engagement across the board because it's a network. And so you have these network effects, flows down through to your bottom line too, with the advertising and, increasing your inventory and etc. So the whole purpose of this round is to really accelerate things.
And for you being in Australia, I believe you said, how did you hear about equity crowdfunding, or what really got your attention there to begin a process like this?
Yeah, so I'm not actually in Australia. I'm in America. I've lived in Los Angeles for 6 years.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got that one wrong. Yeah.
No, that's okay. My co-founder lives in Australia, and half of our team is in Australia. So it's a good question. And it makes working across multiple time zones very tricky. but we do make
Well, you kind of pass it over, though. Like you do your work and you pass it over to them. They do their work. So you got like 24/7, right? Someone
basically, we almost, because my last meeting of the days is like 10 p.m. LA time. I go to sleep, I wake up, and the person I was speaking to then is in their final hour of the workday. So it does sort of work. But anyway, so we found out about equity crowdfunding just from reading some articles in the press, frankly, back in probably 2018. And we dismissed it originally. I think, musicians aren't necessarily those with the most disposable income. That's obviously a stereotype, but it's fairly true. So we just didn't think our audience would necessarily resonate. But we did this quiz with our entire user base. We sent out an email saying, if we were to launch a campaign, what is the appetite? And within 24 hours, people indicated that, $500,000 worth of money was sort of committed's not the right word, but that's the range that people said that they would be interested in participating in. So suddenly we thought, okay, this could be a way to fund the next stage of the company. And so that started about a 6 to 12 month process of getting to know all the major platforms, meeting with all of the CEOs of those companies, doing due diligence, and getting the company fit as well for raising, because our structure C Corp at that time, I think it was an LLC. And so we had to do a whole lot of stuff to get the company in shape to do crowdfunding, but I would never look back now. It's funny that we were so cynical at one point because it's been very good for us.
Yeah, I mean, it also seems like it involves your community as well. Just like looking at your page, all these people saying why they invested is so cool. People saying like the potential for growth. I'm a musician, excited for a platform like this. Jay saying glad to invest and be a part of something like this, back for more, right? So a lot of people also are participating kind of on your team in a sense and like rooting for you.
Yeah, so we see this as a way of basically increasing the number of brand ambassadors we have or evangelists that we have around the world, which is super powerful, especially when you're talking about building a network and a community like Vampr. It's funny though, and as you identified, our investor community, which is now 2,600 people large, I believe, thereabout, that's becoming a community of its own. And we're starting to wonder, how do we manage that? Like, do we create a special page for them inside the app where they can all communicate? Because they're growing. I mean, the fact that any company has that many shareholders at this stage is, I just think, frankly, remarkable. Mm-hmm. And what you do with them and how you use them in a good way to help promote the business and test new features and give like feedback from people who actually give a crap, like all of that stuff is really exciting, but hard to coordinate when there's just so many people.
For sure. For you, like, what is the most exciting part? Because I think it's actually really rare where you get a creative type like yourself able to kind of put the business brains together and really spearhead this thing. What gets you really excited about this?
I've said this in many interviews, but it's true. I really believe that every musician is a small business owner and probably a little bit savvier than they realize. Like, if you think about the smallest club show in the world, you're probably dealing with like 27 people in the supply chain. You've got promoters, you've got merchandise manufacturers, merchandise people manning the table, you've got managers, agents, lighting people, sound front of house, sound back of house, your bandmates, your songwriters, your PROs. I could keep going, right? And so you have to become quite savvy at dealing with lots of people to put on even just a quite small little intimate club show. So you learn a lot, especially after you do that for 10 years. And in my case, I got to the place where we were playing arenas. So I became very familiar with business. And when it came time to starting Vampr, I was just taking that entrepreneurial mindset and just slightly shifting it, I guess. And sure, there's things I have to do now, like cap table management and compliance stuff that I never had to do as a creative. But like any skill, you do it enough times, you pick it up, it becomes second nature.
Yeah. So basically, you kind of were figuring it as you went. And I guess also this desire to solve this problem for other people out there is kind of what kind of plowed you into the future a bit there.
The thing that I really wanted to do, and I think we've kind of achieved this, so it's time for me probably to think of a new goal, but with setting up Vampr, Babs, who's my business partner, our mission was to leave a lasting impact in the world of music. And we know that our platform has directly generated or been responsible for the creation of 220,000 plus original new released songs.
So cool. Yeah.
That's
really
I just think, we've made our mark. I think probably the next goal and thing that drives me now is like, how do we make this thing big enough to either take public or sell? And that's what I work towards every waking minute of the day.
Yeah, definitely. So for those in the audience that are looking at the page, just kind of want to learn a little bit more. So from what I understand, you're doing a priced round, right? When they invest. How is that different from doing something like a crowd safe or some of these other models?
Yeah, so safes or convertible notes typically don't convert into
Equity.
stock or equity until some sort of liquidation event or like a listing or a sale, basically. So we don't. Well, first of all, that can be tricky to manage in a cap table. So we've actually done a safe round. Our first crowdfund round was a safe round. Looking back on it, we probably would have liked to have done a priced round back then as well. But that was pre the days of SPVs and custodians, which for people listening is, entities where you can put these thousands of investors in so that on your main company cap table, it's quite clean as just one entity. So that was why we did safes back then. And we thought this is a tomorrow problem. We'll solve this when the time comes to convert those safes. But yeah, price round, I think price rounds get people more excited. They know that they are owners like immediately in the company. Obviously, the challenge for us is we have to convince them that the valuation is fair, and we do put a lot of effort into, and that puts the onus on us to do better up front, which again is, I think, puts the shareholder in a better position because they're basically sitting there going, impress us, tell me why. Whereas with safes, a lot of time people will be wooed in by the promise of a discount on a future round. That can be a powerful thing. I prefer to just be transparent. I mean, I really do believe if you've looked at Vampr versus other pages, we're one of the most transparent companies in crowdfunding ever.
Yeah, and I think actually you're doing a lot more work because most people don't want to figure out the price of their stock, right? And they don't want to do a price round because it takes so much more work. So it's like I'd rather just promise future equity and figure out the price in the future, right? But
Yeah,
you guys actually are doing the work there to figure that out now, and I think that actually makes it a lot more attractive. And one of the biggest obstacles are people like, oh, I'm not really investing in the company, but in this case, they are.
Yes, that's right. And they become immediate shareholders and I effectively work for them, which is great. And I just think they feel more involved. So that's the short answer as to why we do priced rounds. And the response has been fantastic. Put it this way, our 2 priced rounds that we've done have performed significantly better than our safe round. And I think that's a big part of it.
So yeah, I was looking through your page and you actually have a lot of really interesting perks. I saw one was a Vampr NFT perk. Do you think you could just shed some light on that?
Yeah. So in our first round, we offered baseball caps. And then just after we closed, COVID hit and the cost of shipping was going to be like $40,000 plus, crazy money. And we thought, okay, we'd love to do something like that again, but how could we do a digital version? And then Baz and I had been sort of obsessed with blockchain technologies for several years. And we thought, well, NFT is something that we sort of like to look at and play with in our spare time. Why don't we bring that into the world of Vampr? And we looked around and we realized that no equity crowdfunding campaigns had ever given away an NFT as a perk. Crowdfunding campaigns had, like Kickstarters, but not equity crowdfunding. And there's a reason why, is because no one was sure if it was permitted under SEC laws. So we went and engaged some lawyers who are specialists in the space, and it took us about 3 months to actually work out the specifics. Then we had to do the design and we had to get it manufactured and all this, digitally manufactured and all that stuff. Anywho, long story short, it turns out we are the first company ever in equity crowdfunding to do this. And I think it's really cool. Have you seen them? Have you seen the investor?
I was looking through it. Yeah, it looks it's a super cool idea. And I was actually thinking the same thing. Like, what is the legality of this? So that's really interesting. Yeah, you guys are the first one ever to do this, I guess.
Yes. And so the way it works from a legal standpoint is it's not like the NFT itself is not a security. Like it has no dollar value. And so in the like metadata description of the file, it specifically says there is no like implied value for the NFT itself, and that it's not tied to the security. So people who invest $500 or more, and once we take their money out of escrow and actually confirm their investment contract, they will be gifted this NFT, and that's how we get around it.
And for those who are not familiar, that's basically like you have IP rights almost to this on blockchain, right?
Yeah, it's digital memorabilia. So just like you might own a rare baseball card, you now own this exclusive digital Vampr baseball card, sort of in a way.
Is it accessed? Is it like for a song, or is it like what is that tied to?
Yeah, so we actually designed, it kind of looks like a modern day share certificate, but we put it on like a credit card, like nice, thick, beautiful 3D design, and it just spins around on an infinite loop. So it's an MP4 file, and that NFT is tradable. So let's say Vampr becomes a unicorn one day. There's only 400 of these things in existence. It's feasible that someone in the future might go, I want to sell my Vampr NFT and sell it for quite a high price because it's rare. And the marketplace will determine its value. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like with like if Napster, goes viral and you were one of the first people in, you owned an NFT, that would be super valuable, right?
Exactly.
You were one of the first people to participate in that historic event.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things we've ever done. And I know that when we announced it, it caused a lot of excitement. Like our first few weeks of crowdfunding were explosive, to put it mildly. I think we did like $450,000 in 2 weeks or something like that.
Insane, man. That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, so I just have a couple more questions for you. I mean, one is for people out there in the audience who are hearing this and are interested in doing their own kind of raise. Do you have any advice on doing a WeFunder or doing an equity campaign like this?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest lesson that I've learned from the 3 times doing this is that it's all about the momentum. So you need to, from before you even launch your campaign, you should know from a content perspective what kind of updates you're going to be doing for the first 2 months. And you should be updating people, I'd say, two times a week minimum. That momentum of new content that volume of new content will drive eyeballs, and eyeballs ultimately leads to investments. Like it's a numbers game with equity crowdfunding. So your job essentially is to drive consistently eyeballs to your page, and some small percentage of those people will ultimately invest and check out. So come prepared and have a plan, have a content plan. I think that's the most effective way to raise the capital. Obviously, if you can come up with a unique world first perk like we did, that doesn't hurt. But I wouldn't say that perks will be the deal breaker for the success or lack thereof of a campaign. Like I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that. It's if you can come up with something clever and quick like we did and not too expensive, brilliant. It would definitely help, but it's not be all end all. And then be clear with what you plan to do with your raise, like raise for a purpose. As I said, each round we did has had a very crystal clear purpose. The first one, rebuild Vampr, expand our platform to be more than just musicians and open it up to all the creators of the world. Great. Number 2, bring in live streaming and a version of Instagram stories. Great. Done. Number 3, pour fuel on the fire. We've got product market fit. Let's grow this thing. Let's make some cash. That remains to be seen. So come in with a clear purpose. Because I do see a lot of companies come in and just say, hi, my name is blah, Tom, Jane, whatever, and this is my company X. Invest in us today. And like that's, in my mind anyway, that's not telling a story.
Yeah.
A story is like, this is my background. This is what gets me fired up. This is why I'm wanting to tackle this problem. And this is what I want to do with funds that I'm able to raise. And that's a story. And people are ultimately, motivated, inspired by stories. So yeah.
100%. The other thing I was going to ask you is like, when you talk about this ramping up period and building momentum, do you think that a lot of that came from your user base itself, or were you also getting new people involved in that launch process?
I think about 40% of our investors come from our user base, and 60% come from online initiatives that we do. So that's a combination of PR and press, although that's a very small part of it. I'll give you a very specific example. Let's say you have an investor who's going to put in $10,000. That's probably a big enough of an investment to get you onto the front page of WeFunder. So when you get onto the front page of WeFunder, you want to make sure that you've got, say, a fresh update so that anyone who clicks on your page goes to the update section, sees something that's brand new, right? So and then you might want that update to also be part of whatever press release you've just put out, and hopefully you've lined up a publication to write about it. So it's a time manipulation thing. Like you're really almost manipulating how events unfold so as to give your campaign the best chance of snowballing. Then once you create the snowball, and that's the tricky part, then the job is to just keep pushing the snowball down the hill. Now, all campaigns plateau. Every single campaign ever has plateaued and sort of hits a slow point. And so then you have to do it almost a second time. You have to somehow create the snowball again. I would say that we're approaching that spot potentially soon. Once that happens, then it's up to me to do exactly what I just said. It's to create a news moment, create some kind of an exciting event where the number jumps up quite substantially. And then it's quite easy to keep it going. So yeah, I mean, that's it.
Exciting.
Really.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's just really a lot of thinking through the process and how can you make this fun for other people as well? And how can you make this an event, right?
Yeah.
In the same way you might put on a music event, how do you get people excited and really wanting to be a part of it, et cetera?
Yeah, it is. It's honestly it's like a 6-month event. It really is. It's crazy, but I enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it originally. It's funny. The first crowdfunding round we did, we got to the end of it, popped a bottle of champagne. I said, I'm never doing that ever.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I know. Every time I've ever said that about anything in my life, it's not been true. And then we got to the second one, and I actually found the second one incredibly enjoyable. And I think it's just because, like anything, man, like you do it once, it's tricky. The first time anything is something, and the first time you do anything, it's tricky. And then the second time around, it's like, oh no, this is familiar. It's comfortable. And then once you relax, you can learn to have some fun with it. And I think you see that in our updates. If you click through and read our updates, you'll see that like me and Baz just have a lot of fun with this because it is fun. Like we're building a community of investors and there's mutual respect there and trust. And I love it. Yeah.
So I just have one more question, then we can kind of end just talking about where people can go and check out more of your WeFunder. But my final question for you here is, there are a lot of people in the audience who see what you're doing and they're like, this guy is insane. Like he's able to pull this off. He comes from a really interesting background, can pull together this massive team. What do you feel like has been, the reason behind your success? Do you think it's your ability to network? Do you think it's the ability to bring together a team? What do you think has really led to this moment in time where you're now looking at, 500K, you've done $1 million before, you've done another successful campaign. What do you feel like has really contributed to that people can learn from?
Well, I don't sleep. So I'm dead set serious. I work like 17-hour days, which is not good for my health, but sheer perseverance, dude. It really just comes down to having a vision, never sitting on the fence, making decisions, even if they end up being wrong ones, making decisions, putting one foot in front of the other on every single given day of the year, and just making iterative progress, and eventually you do get there. I believe that it is possible for anyone.
Persistence. Yeah.
That's it.
Love it. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about your campaign? And I'm not sure how much longer you're running this. How long also are you going to be open for investment?
Honestly, we haven't actually made up our mind about that because we can keep it open until April. A little bit of that will depend on if we raise any money privately, which we always do concurrently with our public raises. So depending on how big the private investment is, we might seek to wrap it up quickly, or we might just keep it open and let the money trickle in. It's a strategic decision we're yet to make. But anyway, it could be open until April. So I'll say that, but it also could shut in December. We just don't know. So check out the page today. It's at www.wefunder.com/Vampr, which is VAMPR.
Exciting. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And I guess we can end on this note where if you could talk directly to the audience, and you can either end with a final tip, a word of encouragement, something you wish you knew you could get when getting started, anything along those lines, and we can end on that note.
Don't wait for a single second to get started on the execution, because everyone has ideas and everyone's a dreamer, but executing is really kind of the key, right? And I just think if people have ideas for businesses, especially small businesses or even big businesses, but if you've got an idea and you've always wanted to run your own company, there's never been a better time probably in history to go out there and raise some money behind your idea and execute. And I think it's such an exciting time to be an entrepreneur, and people should just go for it.
Awesome. Josh, thank you for coming on the show, and good luck with your remaining days.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. I started my show in 2015, and to me, it's just been an incredible experience to be able to interview so many cutting edge entrepreneurs who are really on the forefront when it comes to raising money using crowdfunding. And in addition, you're combining a lot of different techniques in order to get a campaign funded rapidly, in order to surge past expectations and to make sure they smash their goal when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign. So today we gave an example when it comes to WeFunder and equity crowdfunding, how this is exploding. There are also so many other examples in the episodes, man. So many other examples in the archives when it comes to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, e-commerce, how to do even a nonprofit campaign if you wanted to do that, tabletops, board games, physical products. I bring it all. I really try to create almost a library of success. You can pick off one of those episodes, ones that resonates with you. You can learn a bit, you can get inspired, you can start taking action towards your goals. That is my dream and that is my vision for you, is that you not only feel confident going into your campaign, you also are armed with some great strategies, some tried and true practices. And if you feel like if you're really ready, you're willing to take action, you can then take advantage of some of these new opportunities that I'm sharing with you every single day. And again, I'm just documenting this stuff, guys. I notice this all the time. That's just kind of how my mind works. I'm always seeing these things happening. I'm just like, I got to share this with the community. I got to share this with the community. So it's so exciting for me to bring these kinds of stories to you. Now, if you want to kind of go another layer deeper, and you really want to figure out if this is going to be a good fit for you, how to do one of these, or even if it's something when it comes to how to figure out the execution side of doing an equity crowdfunding campaign or a WeFunder campaign or a start engine, you can reach out to me with a one-on-one intensive coaching call where we can go in depth into your specific product, software, startup, project, whatever it is you're trying to do. And we can figure this out. We can figure out a blueprint for your specific success. If that sounds interesting to you, the link I'm about to share will take you to a coaching form where you can fill out some information there. You can book a call and we can really get into the nitty gritty of whether or not this is a path that you want to go down and also how you can execute on this step by step. If that sounds interesting to you, you can go to this link, crowdcrux.com/coaching. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. And again, that is an exclusive one-on-one call with me where we'll be going intensive into your campaign. So make sure you bring your questions. Make sure you do a little bit of learning as well before you get on. I really like to work with people who are a little bit knowledgeable when it comes to at least understanding their own product and what they're trying to accomplish. So again, that link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. Thank you so much for signing up and for also listening to today's episode. It means a lot to me. I'm so excited about the action that you're taking, even just downloading this information in your head, really upgrading your education and your learning. It is so cool, man. And I can't wait to hear from some updates from you. Give me a rating and review on iTunes if you're listening to it there, or give me a thumbs up on YouTube if you're listening to it there, or on Spotify. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Salvador, and I will see you next time.